Hello, good afternoon. The government is to make it easier for British holidaymakers to travel to much of Europe this summer, including Spain, France and Greece. From the 6th of July, people arriving in the UK from a country considered to be at low risk from coronavirus will no longer have to self-isolate for 14 days. But there are calls for further clarifications, as our transport correspondent Tom Burridge reports.
Jetting off abroad should soon become easier because much of Europe is set to be exempt from the government's travel quarantine.
The self-isolation would be a real barrier to going away because of the timing of our holiday. So when we get back, we haven't got 14 days and before our little ones need to go back to school. You know, they've missed out so much, we can't have them missing out on any more.
A series of travel corridors are set to take effect from July the 6th, meaning people won't have to self-isolate. It's almost certain that big holiday destinations like Spain, France, Italy, Greece and Turkey will be included. However, the final list is expected to be much longer than that. Sweden will probably not feature, and there's confusion over Portugal. Ferry companies are getting ready for when more people return. But some don't feel confident enough to head to France, like Emma, who's been shielding.
Quarantine makes no difference to me. I've got a motorhome with, air conditioning and a fridge. I'm happy. I've got my ice cream. But if I can't get across the border, that's a whole different thing, because the air corridor doesn't mean that they're going to guarantee the ferries are running.
We believe it can be safe to operate without the need for quarantine.
But for airlines which have been battered by the pandemic, it's a move in the right direction.
We really need to move quickly to establish some safe corridors. And we're not talking about throwing it open to the entire world, but where it is safe to operate, we fundamentally believe that we are also safe to operate, and we need to do that quickly.
Eurotunnel says bookings have exploded since news that the government will relax its travel advice abroad. But if Brits are to be welcome in European resorts, the virus needs to remain under control back home in the UK.
The way things are now, and we always have to put this asterisk that the health situation has to continue to be on the same track as it is now, that we can certainly lift the restrictions in the next few days or 2 to 3 weeks.
Managing the crowds on the beaches is already a challenge, even without large numbers of foreign tourists. Tom Burridge, BBC News.
Asylum seekers who were living in a Glasgow hotel where 6 people were stabbed yesterday say the attacker warned he planned to hurt people the day before he struck. The knifeman's believed to be an asylum seeker from Sudan. Meanwhile, one of those injured, Constable David White, an officer from Police Scotland, is now in a stable condition in hospital. He's been praised for his bravery. Alexandra Mackenzie reports from Glasgow.
The cordon remains in place around the Park Inn hotel, a grim reminder of yesterday's multiple stabbing. Armed police arrived within minutes, shooting dead the attacker. He's believed to have been an asylum seeker from Sudan, living in the hotel during the coronavirus lockdown. Siraj was also living there. He said the attacker warned him that he wanted to hurt people.
To be honest with you, before he did that, he said that to me. He said I will attack. I thought that he was joking. He said, no, it's fine, you don't need. He said, I hate them, they hate me. And that night I complained to the hotel reception, and the man in the reception, he said I will take it seriously, and he make the complaint. I didn't imagine that he will attack him the next day.
Others described him as quiet and said he struggled with life in the hotel.
I was so surprised, because to me I didn't know that guy, because he's so quiet, I didn't know that he can able to snap.
Constable David White was one of the 6 people who were stabbed. He is in a stable condition in hospital. 2 members of staff at the Park Inn hotel and 3 asylum seekers who were staying there were also stabbed. They are all being treated in hospital. Scotland's First Minister said, "My thoughts today remain with Constable White, whose bravery we're all deeply grateful for, and the other people who sustained injuries in yesterday's terrible incident. She wished them a full and speedy recovery." The Scottish Refugee Council said it was devastated by what happened. Alexandra Mackenzie, BBC News, Glasgow.
The latest official coronavirus figures for the UK show that 100 more deaths were reported in the 24 hours to 5 p.m. last night. It brings the total number of people reported to have died with the disease in the UK to 43,514. Police have broken up more public gatherings overnight, dispersing a large street party that started in Kensal Rise in West London, while Liverpool supporters gathered for a second night to celebrate the city's Premier League win, of course, but that was despite authorities there pleading with fans to stay at home. Alison Friedman has the details and a warning her report does contain some flashing images.
Cleaning up after the night before. Volunteers started picking up bottles at 7 o'clock this morning and have been on their hands and knees removing shards of glass from the grass. The mess was caused by thousands of fans who turned out for a second night to celebrate Liverpool's Premier League win. But things got out of hand. No social distancing in the midst of this pandemic, and a firework thrown at the Liver building led to firefighters being called to put out the resulting fire. Today, the volunteers said this wasn't the way they wanted their city to be portrayed.
There's a time and place to celebrate, isn't there? We've waited 30 years, we've waited 3 extra months for this. What's another little bit longer?
It puts a bit of a sour taste to the win, which is a shame, but you know, it's a small minority of the fans.
A dispersal order has now been put in place, which means police can stop people gathering at key points in the city, including here at Liverpool's waterfront. But the city's mayor says more should have been done yesterday.
Social media was alive with people saying, come to the pier head, there's going to be, you know, a party at the pier head. Social media was alive with that yesterday. So there are questions that we need to ask about what went wrong. Why didn't we understand and know anything about that?
We took action that was proportionate, and that's not just me giving an excuse. You know, we balanced that risk and we did what was the safest for the significant crowds that were there.
15 arrests were made last night, and the Liverpool force says it won't tolerate the violence and abuse its officers were subjected to. Alison Freeman, BBC News, Liverpool.
In India, the number of coronavirus cases has now exceeded 500,000, with 100,000 new infections reported in less than a week. The government imposed a national lockdown in March, but many of the restrictions were eased earlier this month. India's now recorded more than 15,000 deaths from COVID-19. Now, police in Northern Ireland say a body believed to be that of the missing teenager Noah Donohoe has been found. The 14-year-old was last seen close to the Shore Road in North Belfast last Sunday evening. Police say they don't suspect foul play. A new government is being formed in Ireland after two parties which have dominated politics for decades, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, agreed to enter a coalition with the Green Party. The leader of Fianna Fáil, Micheál Martin, has been formally elected the country's new Prime Minister, or Taoiseach, this afternoon. Our Ireland correspondent Chris Page is in Dublin for us. And Chris, it is certainly a historic day there.
That's right. 140 days have passed since the general election, and of course in that time the world has changed drastically. But after long negotiations there is a new government, and Micheál Martin has the job of leading the Republic of Ireland and dealing with the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. His elevation is the result of a deal between his party Fianna Fáil and their historical rivals Fine Gael. The two parties grew out of the two sides in the Irish Civil War in the 1920s and have never before shared power. The Fine Gael leader Leo Varadkar is leaving the Taoiseach's office after 3 years, but he's not leaving government. In fact, he'll be Deputy Prime Minister until December 2022, when under the terms of the agreement he'll swap places with Micheál Martin and become Prime Minister again.
Lovely, Chris, thank you so much. Now, the Queen and the Prime Minister have led the tributes to veterans and serving military personnel to mark Armed Forces Day. The Red Arrows performed a fly-past over Scarborough. The annual parades, which normally take place around the country, of course, have been cancelled because of coronavirus. I'll be back with the team for the late news at 10:10. We might see you then, but now on BBC One, time for the news where you are. Bye-bye.
Am I back in the right place?